Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WinUI Community Call.
Good morning, everyone. So we've got a group of us here. Good to see everyone again, and looking forward to sharing some conversation about WinUI and WinApp SDK. So I'm Bob Pulliam, and I'm joined here by Chigusa Sampson and Clint Rukas.
Hello.
So we start off with the same way that we do for all the community calls. So what is WinUI? So WinUI is a native UI platform for Windows 10 and 11. And it started off as an in-the-box UI platform called WinUI 2. And we then took that out of the box and lifted it so that it could be separated from an individual Windows platform in the form of WinUI 3. We've been developing that for a number of years now, and it now ships as a part of the Windows App SDK.
So today we have a lot of things to share with you since the last time. First of all, we'll have Clint introduce himself. For those of you who are not familiar with him, wondering why he's here. We'll share what we shipped in 1.4, gallery updates. We'll share what we're planning for 1.5, updates on source sharing and cleanup, and we have some introductions to follow.
So the first big thing we want to talk about is we're going to expand the call, and we're going to move it to become the Windows Developer Community Call. And why we believe this is important is the team works on many, many things: Dev Home, Windows Terminal, WinUI, WinApp SDK, Dev Drive, React Native for Windows, WinApp SDK, performance and fundamentals on Windows, Power Toys, which I will openly say is near and dear to my heart, Windows Subsystem for Linux, WinGet Configure, Windows Subsystem for Android, the Windows Community Toolkit. I can keep on going on and on and on. So what we want to do is expand out the call and include everyone and show all the great things and all the cooperation that's happening between the teams and how we all work better together and help answer a lot more of the questions that you all have outside of just WinUI and the WinApp SDK, but include everything. So what we're going to do is, Bridget, can you go to the next slide? Is we're going to go schedule a quarterly call. And the key thing is, if we need to do more calls, absolutely we will. And we're going to listen to feedback here. We're going to leverage the @WindowsDev and the @WindowsUI and any other handle on X, formerly Twitter. And we're still going to continue to do it at 9 a.m. Pacific, 1600 UTC time. And we want to answer any and all questions. So we will proactively do the same kind of discussion style question system that we have on the current WinUI community call, but expanded across all the repositories, all the things that we have access to be able to answer to all your questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jesse, and we'll do a round of introductions later on in the call.
Am I live? All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Jesse. I'm a software engineer on the WinUI 3 team. Next slide, please. Just talking a little bit about XAML islands today. I did some work on XAML islands. So XAML islands have been experimental for a few builds, and now they are officially in 1.4 stable. So that's exciting. So if you haven't heard of XAML islands before, it's basically a set of APIs that allow you to add a little rectangle of XAML to an existing Win32 app, and that's backed by a child HWin. So at the left there, you see that's a little screenshot of a sample app that we have in GitHub right now. You can go check out if you want. So this sample app is basically just a Win32 vanilla template app that we put a XAML island in. So you can see on the top there, that's a Win32 button 1. The one that says that's your classic old school Battleship Gray Win32 button that's been in the OS forever. And then below that, you see there's some XAML elements in our XAML islands. You see that click me button is XAML. The I am a XAML text box is a XAML text box. The little squiggly, shows the spell checker working. And then the Microsoft Bing thing is a web view 2 that's in the XAML island. Next slide, please. Just quick overview, just box and lines diagram here. You could kind of see it pretty well on the first page, but the API that really drives the XAML islands is called Desktop Window XAML Source, which is kind of a mouthful. It makes more sense when you realize that the term desktop window is a term we use to basically mean HWin. So it's kind of like HWin XAML source. We call it desktop window XAML source. And that's the API you'd use to basically attach XAML tree to your HWin. And it also, want to call it real quick. It also uses this desktop child site bridge object. That's kind of what HWin wrapper in our API surface right now. Next slide, please. This slide just kind of a high level overview. I don't expect anyone to remember all this, but I just want to hit some points real quick of things you need to do to your app to make WinApp SDK work well inside of it. So this is in the case if you have a Win32 app that you want to put XAML in. Here's some of the things you need to do. You can see probably the best way to do it, I mentioned at the bottom, is to go to check out the sample. But we use this dispatcher queue. We require this to run XAML content. So you start that up in that first bullet. In the second bullet, we have a function called content pre-translate message that does a lot of, looks at the message behind the scenes. So in your message loop, you want to call that to make everything work right. And then the third bullet, like you would today in a WinUI desktop app, you have your own instance of your custom XAML application object. And that works like it would in a normal XAML app. And then you're ready to go. You can create a desktop Windows XAML source and put it into your HWin wherever you want. When you're all done, you call dispatcher queue controller shutdown queue, and that ensures this orderly shutdown of the WinApp SDK components on the thread. Next slide, please. Just a few architectural notes here. So the XAML Islands APIs have been around a while in the inbox system XAML. So they'll look similar to those today, but we've evolved them a little bit. We now have kind of this underlying architecture that is powered by what we call content islands. We could talk about that part more in the future if there's interest. But for now, we just want to mention it to kind of show how we're moving the platform to handle some of the complexities of Win32 better going forward. So that's XAML Islands. I think that's my last slide. So thanks, everybody.
Hi everyone, my name is George. I'm an engineer working on WinUI 3, and today I'm here to talk to you about some of the changes we made to window pop-ups in release 1.4. Next slide, please. So in short, window pop-ups work now. The API for this is the should constraint to root bounds property. This was available on pop-up and flyout base and teaching tip, and it's still available there. It's just that up to version 1.4, you could set this property all you want. We didn't do anything about it. But now, as you can see in the screenshot, these pop-ups are property windowed. These pop-ups are also enabled with desktop acrylic backdrop, as you can see in the third level nested menu. The green in the background is showing through now, although the API is going to look slightly different. And finally, we made a fix to how entrance animations look that I think they look more consistent now. Next slide, please. So on the topic of desktop acrylic backgrounds, the API for this looks slightly different. It used to be that in WinUI 2, you just set an effect brush and you make it a host backdrop and the windows in the background show through. But now we have a system backdrop property that you set. To people who are familiar with version 1.3, this looks awfully like the EasyMic API. In fact, it's the same one. This was a property that's available on window, but now it's also available on pop-up and flyout base. And we realized that flyout base can't be styled, so we also added it to menu flyout presenter and command bar flyout command bar for styling scenarios. You take this property and you assign it to an object of type desktop acrylic backdrop, and your pop-up now lights up with desktop acrylic backdrop. One important distinction to note is that these are not like a brush that shows up in the middle of your tree. These are actually a layer with the proper brush behind the tree. So it's important that you don't set a background in your tree that would cover up the backdrop. So for instance, if you have a root grid with a background, you want to make that transparent or take away the background when you add the system backdrop property. Next slide, please. And hopefully you won't have to make any changes at all because we've updated a number of controls to just have desktop acrylic by default. You can see in the screenshots, menu flyout now has desktop acrylic backgrounds and window pop-ups in all layers of nested menus. Command bar flyout now brings up a flyout with the desktop acrylic background, and menu bars menus also just have a desktop acrylic background by default. So if you're just using these out-of-the-box controls as is, you won't need to do anything. These the feature just lights up by itself. we didn't light up every single control. So one thing we know about, for example, is command bar. The overflow menu doesn't have desktop acrylic background yet. So if you see these, let us know. We'll fix them. Command bar is one that we're working on right now. Next slide, please. And the last part is shadows and entrance animations. So in WinUI 2, the entrance animation went, the menu slides up or slides down. And then when it's done moving, the shadow fades in. With WinUI 3, we made a fix. The shadow is now part of the entrance animation. It's there on frame 1, and it just slides in with the rest of the flyout. And Karen can demonstrate some of this in her WinUI gallery sample. Next slide, please. Thanks, everybody.
Cool. So I'm next. I'll be talking about the WinUI gallery updates. So hi, I'm Karen. I'm a dev on WinUI 3 as well. Next slide, please. So here I'll be going over all the new updates to WinUI gallery. So the most important one, obviously, is now that it's using WinApp SDK 1.4, which is super exciting. And with that means there's new samples for new controls like the annotated scroll bar, items view, and scroll view. There's also some pretty exciting behind the scenes update with the repo, which is we got automated CI pipeline and PR validation with basic interaction tests and accessibility insight tests, hoping to expand that more in the near future. And that's thanks to our community contributor, Chingu Coding. So thank you so much for that. Next. Oh yeah, I'll be going over the demo. So let me. Can you guys see it? Yay, cool. So as you can see here, this is the new WinUI gallery with WinApp SDK 1.4. And look over here, recently added samples, annotated scroll bar. So these, it's a little laggy actually. So these samples are authored by Regis, and as you can see, you can scroll down to different colors for the annotated scroll bar. With all the labels on the right side, you can adjust the minimum maximum height. And then there's items view. So there's selection, there's the line float layout, which is the most exciting view here. And then you can change it to uniform grid layout, stack layout. And here there's multiple selection available. And as usual, you can see all the code here or on the GitHub repo online. Finally, there's a scroll viewer. Ooh. Just a sample to demonstrate the scrolling. And for menu flyout to showcase the new shadow animations. So I usually find animations don't translate as well streaming. So you guys will just have to check it out on, download it for yourself and check it out yourself. Thank you.
Hi, so I wanted to share this exciting 1.5 feature list. So just so you know that this does not include things that we have to do, right? Like bug fixing, stuff like that, that's assumed. For Windows App SDK, we are adding, doing infrastructure work so that we can ship more often and like have more flexibility in shipping cadence and improving support for the Visual Studio and Maui and such. And WinUp SDK has different APIs that ship as a component. And one of the big component is WinUI 3. So we're doing a lot of work there. We're continuing the island work support for the cross-process island. And we're adding more controls that is still some gaps that between WinUI 3 and 2. As you saw with the file explorer, we're using tabbed windows more often in the products. So we're doing additional work to make sure they are highly functional and adding the WebView 2 drag and drop support. Dynamic lighting is a new API that Windows App SDK is going to be shipping. And this is something that the developers can use to create exciting lighting experience. And we're also doing improvements of WinUI 3 for accessibility, testability, etc. And we are continuing the support for File Explorer, so that something like annotated scroll bar that File Explorer shipped, right? Like those are the things that you also benefit from being able to use the same components that we ship for File Explorer. So we're looking forward to giving you more and more stuff that you can use to make your apps great.
Oh, did we skip a slide? Yes. So I get to address the elephant in the room. And I'm very happy to announce that we are publishing the source for WinUI 1.4.1. We are in the final stages of getting this out, and it will be coming out very, very soon. We really wanted to have this out in time for this call, and we were not able to make it just by a hair, but we are getting this out, and 1.4.1 will be published. So what does this mean? We are publishing the contents of the WinUI repo, and we're going through, and this will include the Microsoft UI Xaml DLL, the source for Microsoft UI Xaml controls, and the vast majority of the code that you're using and what you know as WinUI 3. Now, there are some holdbacks for things such as dependencies that we take from other teams, code that is shared, things that we don't have the full rights to, but that's going to be a very small amount of it. Now, the primary thing, and in addition to all the sources, we are going to be publishing the symbols, and that is the full symbols. So not the stripped down version, but the full symbols. What this is going to mean is you will be able to see, why am I getting this? What is going on with this property? If you get a crash, you'll be able to go and debug it and actually see what is going on. This is a huge, huge boon for all the developers. And I know it's been asked for a long time. We are finally delivering on this. I'm very, very excited. And I want to give thanks especially to Evelyn on my team and all of the people who have had a huge contribution in making this happen. It is coming out. In addition to that, we will be going through, and as we ship new versions, so when 1.4.2, the servicing update ships, we'll be updating GitHub with the sources for 1.4.2 and continuing to update that as we release in public version. So you will continue to be able to see the changes and to be able to debug your code and understand what is happening. So again, this is a huge milestone, and I want to thank everyone on the team involved for making this happen. Next slide, please. Now, there's been a lot of conversation about the GitHub issues and the cleanup, and I wanted to just give an update on. When we originally flagged the items that had not been touched in calendar year 2023, that there were roughly 1,000 issues. We went through and opened it up and said, if you still care about this, please put a comment on it. And it was roughly 15% that were tagged and were not deleted. We then took all of the remaining issues, and if it did not have an issue already in our internal bug log, we brought it into the bug log. And the teams have been going through and triaging that and getting that down, eliminating duplicates. And we're already seeing a huge benefit to our processes. In the past, what had been done, we were doing our day-to-day work in Azure DevOps, and then from time to time, we would go and pop out to GitHub and see what was there and try and keep up with it. And it really was not scalable, and it was not feasible at all. So now we are able to, when an issue is filed on GitHub, it automatically appears in Azure DevOps. We're able to see it. And we are seeing, even in 1.4 and 1.4.1, that we are seeing issues come in. It's getting to the right developer faster, and we are able to fix regressions in a much, much quicker time. So we are seeing, there's an example with a combo box that we saw. There was an issue where on touch, it was, you could open it once, but then after the second time that it was not happening, went to the developer. We have a fix, and that'll be coming in the next servicing release. So they're continue to make progress on that. We did not clear these out in order to make the issues go away, but it's really to help us in the prioritization and to get more signal and less noise. There are still a lot of issues, and we are going through and addressing that backlog. We are still working on performance. And George, who was on the call earlier, I want to call out, has done some great work that even since 1.4.0, that he's done some performance work and reducing the initial startup time by a significant amount. I believe it was like 5%. So doing great work on that. We are continuing to clean up the issues and really contribute to the quality of WinUI all throughout. Next slide.
So hello, we just want to quickly show some of the people that work on all these fantastic products. So right now, Bridget is adding in a bunch of our friends here. So we have Kayla, Craig, Pankaj, Demetrius, Bob, Shakuza. She's just going to go through and add in just a bunch of people. We found out that there's actually a limit of how many people can be in our subsystem right now for streaming. So there are actually many more.
Can you actually mute yourself?
Sorry, I was Bridget is right next to me. So see. So we do want to just once again reiterate that there's a lot of people to the crew, and we cover everything. We will keep the call technical. There's lots of additional topics that we want to bring up. Bridget, can you do me a favor and go to the next slide also? So here's just a few things. There's many more that holistically the team works on. So there's lots of different topics, and 100% we will continue to talk about WinUI, WinApp SDK. There's tons of fantastic questions you all have, and we want to be sure that those questions are addressed and that we are doing it. So I do want to stress one of the questions in the call was quarterly, less content. We believe that there will be more content, and if we do need actually additional things or additional calls, 100% we will schedule those and try to figure out what is the correct cadence. This is an experiment. We love experimentation. Hopefully you do as well. So let's go figure out what is the correct cadence moving forward. So with that, one of the things we do want to do before we actually go into Q&A is Pankaj is working on a really cool Windows Terminal demo. So I'm going to go hand it off to Pankaj right now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pankaj, and I'm on the Windows Terminal team, one of the other apps that uses WinUI. And yeah, we just had a release yesterday, but I want to show off something that we've been working really hard on in the backend. So if you could just move on to the next slide. I believe there should be a video. Is that video gonna play? Well, I'm just gonna talk about it as the video gets fixed. So in short, we are looking to integrate AI into the terminal as an opt-in feature. So the idea is that you can have access to an AI chatbot within your terminal, because we've all been there where we don't completely remember the syntax for a certain command, like tar commands, or like you don't remember the exact syntax for the parameters you need to add to your random git command that you want. And so normally you would switch to your browser, use your favorite search engine to figure out what the command should be. But what if you could do that just within terminal? And it looks like we're having some technical difficulty with the video. So I'm just going to go ahead and I guess explain what the feature is about. So yeah, so you can pull up this chatbot within terminal, and it's opt-in. You need to hook up the AI in the backend beforehand, and then you can ask the AI for this question of how to do this command. AI will respond, give you a code snippet that you can simply just click, and that gets inputted into your shell. It doesn't get executed immediately. You're still allowed to edit it and stuff in your shell as you normally would before you finally choose to execute it. So yeah, that's just a quick talk about what we're working on in the backend and terminal. We are working really hard on that and just testing that internally and getting that ready. Cool. It looks like we're gonna move on to
Yeah.
Q&A.
Yeah. So really quickly, we're going to upload the video. Sorry, that's my bad. And then we'll probably take one question as we're uploading the video, and then we'll switch back to the video so then Pankaj can walk through the coolness. Cool. So Bob and Chikuza, do you want to handle the first question?
Sure, I can take the first one. So I saw a number of questions from both Martin Anderson and Dot Morton on what is the priority order of bugs, and do Microsoft Teams get priority? So we are going through, and I will say we're looking at things. Regressions are top priority, looking at crashes that are significant, that are getting large numbers. And we are looking at those as the first priority. In the work that we were doing with File Explorer, that is, if we have significant number of crashes there, that is going to take priority. What I would say is the work that we've done in bringing the GitHub issues in is it's actually raising the visibility and raising the priority so that it's not, let's look at the Microsoft issues first, and then we'll look at GitHub. Instead, they're all being looked at together, and the high priority issues that are coming in from the community are showing up as high priority issues mixed in with the other items. We still, Microsoft still pays our paychecks and all of that, so we can't completely ignore that. But the effect of this is it actually is bringing higher visibility and higher priority to the community issues. And I hope that you will see more and more fixes coming out that validate that.
And I also wanted to add that we have published the explanation about how we prioritize bugs in the GitHub. So if you haven't found it, I'll try to see if I can post the link.
And then Chigo.
Okay, I'm back. Looks like the video is working. So yeah, if we could just start playing it. There we go. So here's me pulling up the chatbot, and I'm asking a question of how to do a tar command, because those have a lot of parameters that I tend to forget. And the AI responds with with an explanation and 2 potential commands. I can go ahead and click it, and there we go. It gets input into my shell, not executed yet. Can go ahead and edit it if I want to before actually executing it. And there we go. Thank you so much for watching this demo.
All right, Chigusa, do you want to talk about the feature requests and the process for that now that the source is out?
Yeah, so I was posting a link on GitHub. So we have a explainer that talks about how we handle the feature requests and things like that. For the most part, feature request, we will announce or will provide information about what feature we are working on in the next product cycle. So like we did today with the 1.5, we'll be able to tell you what we have in plan for the next cycle, and everything else goes into the backlog, and we'll be able to tell you exactly when they become as something that we will be working on.
All right, looking here. Pankaj, I see a question here for, I saw Windows Terminal 1.19 has unfocused acrylic and Office apps using unfocused mica. Can these get official support through WinUI 3 through backdrops?
Yes. Yeah, it will be possible. Don't have. Yep.
Well, the one point item to come on that is that the terminal is currently using WinUI 2, and we've had lots of discussions between the two teams on getting terminal to WinUI 3. Some of the work that is being done in 1.5, includes a lot of features around tabs and the use of tabs and a lot of the functionality there. And part of that is with terminal in mind, that it's something that they've been asking us for quite a while on making that easier to enable a future transition of terminal from WinUI 2 to WinUI 3.
I did see another question in the chat as well about whether the AI is going to know the difference between WSL bash, command prompt, PowerShell. Yes, so we do let the AI know what shell you are actively on. And so the response you get from the AI should incorporate your active shell and be appropriate to that.
I see another question here from Dot Morton on what is the status of native AOT? And we've been working on support for the next version of Visual Studio, and a number of the preview features that are included there that includes native AOT. Because of the work that is being done, CS1RT has to support it first, and I know that Mano's been working hard on getting that done. And in addition, there are some other pieces that need to be done as far as trimming, and so there was a change made in .NET 8 as far as the target frameworks and the way that those work. But we're looking at all of those things, and we'll be updating WinUI and WinApp SDK to fully support the next version of Visual Studio, and that includes work for native AOT. I don't have an exact time frame on that, but we are peeling that onion now and making good progress on getting that done. So I see one here. Jesse, can you look at the garbage collection issues related to events and Xbind specified in the Xaml? Having to manually unwire all of these is a step backwards. And just on the events and memory reclaiming and shutdown in general, do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I don't have context on how that works for Xbind. Maybe if you could open up a GitHub issue, point you to GitHub issue, we could make sure it goes to the right person.
All right. Looking to see here. If someone has a question that they can answer, feel free to jump in as I'm just scrolling the list here.
There's a question about, are you planning on implementing a true transparent window with pass-through? The reason why we don't do that is because of security, right? Like anybody can have a window that's transparent and take over. So there is a reason why we don't make windows that's true transparent.
I see a few questions about Xaml islands and in WPF and WinForms. I could try to answer that. So since XAML Islands today uses the HWind as the currency of interop, basically any framework that you can put a child HWind in, you should be able to use XAML Islands in. It is true today, we only have posted a sample for that uses C++. And I believe in the for the system XAML Islands, I think we had the community toolkit had some wrappers and helpers for wiring stuff up in WPF and in WinForms, but I'm not sure if we have that today for WinUI 3. So it should work, but today we don't have quite as much infrastructure to help you along right now.
And let's see, so we've got done that one.
There's also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Continue.
Oh, I also saw a few questions about XAML Islands hosting other things. we don't have any support for that today.
There was a question about what does support for Maui mean. So we work with Maui team very closely, and we have an internal list of requests from the Maui team. So we work on that priority order as we work with them. So if you have any Maui requests, perhaps that you can go to the Maui team and raise that priority. That will raise the priority that they're talking to us about.
So I see a question here from Nick Cherson. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Can we get a more complete set of window helpers? You have to look at window messages to add a min-max height width to a window at this stage seems a little excessive. One of the things that we've done in 1.4 is we added a helper to be able to start bringing together the Win32 app window and the Xaml window and making it so it's easy to correspond between those. And instead of us trying to bring a whole bunch of helpers in for all of the functionality that can be done with Windows and with Win32, that we're going through and instead making it easier to get at the functionality that's there. Another example of this is the work that was done with title bar. So in 1.4, we took the title bar and took the WinUI 3 implementation of it and instead rewrote it so that it is running the standard app window title bar and exposing that. So instead of us drawing our own caption buttons, that we're now using app windows. And instead of us doing our own theming, that we're using the standard app window, and looking to bring that forward so that we're reusing that and with the goal of having more consistency on native Win32 calls and WinUI calls, that you get both of those together in a consistent way and can use the same APIs going back and forth between the two. I see a number of questions here about WPF. And Chigusa, do you have any comments to make? I see one, will WPF's presentation styles get updated to match Windows 11 UI? And love to hear the status and plans for WPF.
So WPF team has a GitHub repo that talks about their plans. What's in there is up to date. We do work closely, but I don't want to be sharing information outside of their team at this point. So please go to their GitHub and look at what their plans are, which I think answers your questions. So I think, yeah, please do so. I did want to comment on, there was a question, let me try to go back to, about from Akib, about shouldn't there be a dedicated team for WinUp SDK development? It's supposed to be the future development framework for Windows apps, then needs focus. So one thing I wanted to clarify to the community, just in case it's not clear, WinUp SDK is a shipped vehicle. Like it ships different APIs, as I mentioned, WinUI being one of them, the dynamic gliding, like for example, is another. Those APIs are owned by many different teams across Microsoft. So there isn't really a single team that can own all of the APIs. So I wanted to make that clear. And we work across the company to make sure that developers get the APIs that you need.
Got a question here for, and George, maybe you might have comments on this from Martin Anderson. What about additional shell services being made for being made available for developers? Taskbar flyouts, task tray, thin acrylic, system requested themes, and others.
So for none come to mind. So
Actually, that's a great one to post on the just post on GitHub, and we can take a look at that and ask the appropriate people on that and get you an answer. I'm looking at the long list of questions, trying to find one that. I see a couple of questions about the. I see questions about ink, and also questions about Web Authenticator. I know that the ink is one of the things that we are investing in 1.5, and looking at some work there, and the Web Authenticator. I don't recall what the status of that, if someone else knows off the top of their head.
So there are some, I believe, the third party or community solution that's out there. That's what people are using. Currently, there is no plans.
And then one question on publish single file, and when will we be able to publish single file? And publish single file is one of those where if you do just the right thing, that it works, and if you do the wrong thing, you can't make it work at all. So, for example, self-contained and publish single file are not compatible. And one of the things that there is a pull request that is open right now that we are looking at getting in, which is to make it clearer on what works and what doesn't. And if you do have an unsupported scenario or something that is simply not going to work, that we would actually do a build break and say that is not compatible. You need to do that. We have heard the feedback on publish single file. At this point, I am prioritizing work on general publishing scenarios, on getting things such as there are issues with unpackaged and other general publishing scenarios that we are prioritizing over publish single file. But it is something that is on our list. We should make it easier to know if you are going down a bad path and stop you earlier to get on a better path. If anyone else sees a question here. Clint, do you see any that I'm missing here? I'm just not. All right, I guess for the lack of questions, I guess at this point we should wrap it up.
Yep, and I would like to say thank you, everyone. We did see some great feedback in the chat also regarding the format of the show, the cadence of the show. So what we're going to do is go rally back internally and just be sure that we're doing everything that's fantastic for the community. And I'd like to thank everyone, Jesse, Karen, Pankaj, George, Shikuza, Bob, and the rest of the team that proactively helped out to set this up. So once again, thank you, everybody, and can't wait to see you next community call.
Actually, Clint, one moment. One more question came in, and I'll go ahead and address it. Can we please have a visual designer? And for this one, that is an investment. We have looked at it, and it is a substantial investment. But the other part of it is not something that would be just done by our team, that it would have to be a cross-team effort, that we would be coordinating with Visual Studio, with with other teams, we've had discussions with them, and it is something, the community feedback has been noted. We are not ignoring that feedback and are looking to see that. At this point, it is not on the priority plans, but we have not forgotten about it. And we do hear that that is something that people would like to do.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And thank you. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.